All right. Well, for the sake of time, we will get started here. I'll do a brief introduction of Pam. She is a mentor in drug treatment courts and has been a wonderful asset to us in the province of Alberta, helping us with all of the expansion courts. Today, she's going to be talking about the importance of drug court mentors and alumni and how they play a role in our program successes. So I'll let Pam introduce herself in greater detail in just a minute here. But a few housekeeping items. If you do have any questions or comments, please use the Q&A feature. If that's not working for you, you can put them in the chat. We will go through those questions after the presentation. So yeah, without further ado, I will turn it over to Pam.
Good afternoon. Tansei, hello. My name is Pamela Spurby. I'm from Treaty 6 territory. My nation is Beaver Lake Cree Nation. It's an honor to be here with you today. I'm a graduate of drug court, and I will talk about that a little bit through my presentation. I'm just going to start off with the land acknowledgement before I get started. Territorial acknowledgements are more than just about places and land. They are a recognition of the spiritual and historical responsibility that Indigenous people felt and continue to feel towards the land. They are also about spaces and people. Many Indigenous people will often not only refer to our general connection to the land, but that we are born of the land and that all our lives are in the land. We see the land as everything, our connection to our ancestors, our identity, our home, our pharmacy, our library, our food source. It is a gift, not a commodity. We do not own it. We are part of its legacy. We bond not only to the land, but to each other within the land. This ideal influences how we approach the spaces we occupy and the people we connect to there within. Thank you. So, as Chelsea said, I'm a mentor with the drug treatment courts across Alberta. I also work full-time for Alberta Health Services at Henwood Treatment Centre in Edmonton, Alberta, as Indigenous Wellness Coordinator, and I also wear a few different other hats in the community. I sit on a few different committees across the province fighting for housing justice and human rights. And so drug court has really taught me to find my voice, and it's something that I do proudly. So we're going to get started. Of course, this was working until it was time for me to press to the next video. So give me a sec here. There we go. So just a bit of history. So I graduated from drug treatment court in 2007. So I have been on my Red Road healing journey now for 17 years. Before that, I spent many years in and out of substance use and struggling with mental health. Before getting to the point where I got to drug treatment court as a participant, my life was taking a really difficult turn. I was part of intergenerational trauma without knowing that. I was a part of domestic violence and significant trauma that was affecting me, but didn't realize it was affecting me because that's something that was normalized for me. And so I couldn't see that my behaviors were unhealthy because it was something that I grew up with. So by the time I got to drug court, I was completely homeless and being unhoused, had lost my children, and was looking at a 4-year prison sentence. And I was very thankful for drug treatment court. I was from a smaller community. Didn't really know what drug treatment court was, except for me at the time, I seen it as a get out of jail free card. But as I started the process of being in drug court, I realized that it was so much more. So after I graduated after being in the program for 15 months. And by the time I graduated, I had all my children returned home to me. I had 4 children come back into my care. And I left with such a huge, significant increase in how I felt about me and a way better understanding of how my substances and my mental health was affecting how I moved in the world. So it really taught me how to be a part of the community, to be a part of who I am, and really appreciate all of the supports that I had in place for me by the time I graduated. When I was about 3 years clean, the Edmonton Drug Treatment Court was looking to hire a peer support worker, and they chose me. It was really a really funny time for me. I always remember when they hired me, I was like, you want me to come and work for the law? So that was really different for me because I was going to be working alongside Crown prosecutors, police officers, judges, lawyers, and being a part of the team. So it was a very new position. It was a little bit rocky at first. We weren't really sure what we were doing. I was in a corner with a laptop, and we were trying to figure out my role as I went along. And I'll talk a little bit about that in my presentation. And then in 2020, I became a part of the provincial expansion. I was lent to the drug treatment courts to help them, to support and guide them in having a mentor in their courts. And I'm still with them. It's been 3 years. And now we're at a point where they're starting to have graduates, and they're going to have one of their graduates become a mentor. So it's just really been a beautiful opportunity for me, and such an opportunity of growth to be a part of the provincial expansion. So for me, some of the core values that I stand by in my role. When I first started in this role, I didn't really truly have a good grasp on what core values were. And when I came into this role, I came in with my lived experience, but I didn't really come in with a whole lot more. So there was a lot of learning and growing with this role as I was developing it, because there was no one before me. There was a peer. She was from Toronto, and her name was Paula, and that was the first person I ever talked to. But things were done very different over there. So when I started in this role, I started to look for education in the community and different things that would help me so that I could do this role well. And one of the trainings that I took was Peer Support Canada. And so that's when I got my certification as a peer support worker in 2016. And then I went on to get my certification as a mentor, and also my certification as a recovery life skills coach. And over the time, there was many different other certifications that I took, like motivational interviewing, how to have boundaries. There was just so many different things that I took along the way to kind of help me know how to walk beside people in a really good way. So the core values that really stand out for me and have helped guide me in walking beside people in their recovery journey is supporting people to have a sense of hope and recovery, empathetic and equal relationships. So really treating people as equals, relying on people's self-determination to help them see what works for them, treating people with dignity and respect, and helping them to understand what social inclusion could look like, integrity, and also being very authentic with people, and building a relationship of trust, which it takes time. And so that was something that was one of my biggest ones, was building that relationship of trust and helping and supporting people to understand what health and wellness looks like for them, and that this is a lifelong journey. So lifelong learning and personal growth was something that I continue to do even in my role today, but supporting other people to know that that's a big part of their process. So when I think of a participant in the drug treatment court program, I really think of the complexities. And I knew what my complexities were when I was in the drug treatment court program, but to be walking along somebody else with the same complexities of mine are very similar. I was really not sure how to navigate that, because when I navigated it, I had a team around me supporting me to navigate that. So I had to figure out a way on how to be a part of that multidisciplinary team and support people to navigate this with my lived experience, but also supporting them to look at their lived experience and knowing how to navigate these systems in a healthy way for themselves. So one thing I really learned is really how complex things were for the participant. And it could come from many of these different things that are here, all the way to intergenerational trauma. These are just some, to name a few. And I was just one part of this person's journey in helping them reflect on some of these things. But one of the things, as I said, is I realized how important it was for me to be educated so that I could support people when they were trying to get back to working through these crises in their life and the barriers that were coming up for them. So the wraparound supports that became really important were a lot of different things in the community. One of the things that I had to do as a mentor is I had to start to become well versed in what was in my community, what was out there, what was available for these people that I was trying to support. So again, a big part of it was going out and educating myself and actually going to these different places. So one of the places would be, where they can access the food banks. So I went and introduced myself, told them who I was, what kind of program I worked with, got to know who the people were there, so that if I was talking about that program, I wasn't just handing somebody a pamphlet. I was actually talking about, hey, when you go there, the receptionist's name is Sarah, and she's really friendly, and this is what it's like when you walk in. This is what it looks like. So it really helped ease people's anxiety about walking into spaces that were unfamiliar to them, because I knew how difficult it was to walk through a door and to say, I need help. And so I really started to go out there and build the social connections with people. And also, other things that were out there for them that were going to help them navigate recovery in a good way. And so I really, and supporting people to connect to themselves, I really learned how to navigate my story with somebody else's story, which was very new for me because it really wasn't about my story. It was about their story. And so I had to learn how to use my lived experience in a really healthy way so that I could walk beside people in a good way. And so that's what I always continue to say. It was walking beside them. And so I was walking beside them as they were figuring this out and helping them navigate the things that they had to navigate. When people first come into the program, one of the things that I started to notice is how you can't take somebody that's lived a certain way for a really long time and things get instilled in us from a very young age, right? So people's values and belief systems and how they looked at their criminal behavior, how they looked at their actions towards others, all of those different things, there was a lot of shifting that had to happen. And in that shifting, I noticed that it took a lot of retraining people's brains to think differently. And so really helping them with positive feedback, helping them reflect on that they're not bad people, because a lot of people come in and society has told them how bad and broken they are and how they're just an addict or they're just this. And so they come in with a lot of anger, resentment, and fear and sadness. And it was just like all of these feelings that they didn't know how to navigate. And so it was really supporting people to know how to navigate a lot of these emotions, but also trying to help them to figure out what is recovery, right? What is recovery for them, and what is that going to look like? And so as I learned in this, I couldn't do my role without the multidisciplinary team because there was a lot of conflict. A person's was very complex, and so it was really important that when I was struggling with something, that I was able to go to my team and say to them, hey, this is what I'm navigating. What are your thoughts? Or even them coming to me. So that goes into the next part of being a part of my apologies, being a part of the role of the mentor on the team. So as I said, coming into this setting and being a part of a multidisciplinary team was really new for me. I had never had a job like this before. The only job that I ever had was not a very healthy job, and I was in survival mode, right? So I didn't really know how to work with people as a team in a multidisciplinary setting. The team was very open, and we were learning with each other, and so that I was thankful for that. As much as I was teaching them, they were teaching me. There was a lot of different things that I had to learn about the law. And one of them was letting go of my own resentments around, the police and different things that that had happened to me and some of the stuff that I was holding. So the team was really good at holding a safe space for me, and they didn't treat me differently. And so that was really important, right? Because they didn't treat me any less than, and they taught me as an equal part of the team, which really helped me feel valued and understood. And they really valued the insight that I brought because I was able to look at things a little differently because of my lived experience. So we worked in collaboration with the treatment team and probation. And so probation even comes to our weekly meetings, and I include them in my updates, and making sure that we're all on the same page was really important, because one of the things I can tell you is you know they're survivors, right? The people that we're working with were survivors. So as soon as they knew I had lived experience, it was like, oh, well, maybe she's going to, do something different because she's got lived experience and she's a graduate. So I really had to learn how important it was to have healthy boundaries in this role and to really give clear direction right from the beginning of our relationship of what this relationship was going to look like and what I was responsible to do as part of the multidisciplinary team. So right from the beginning of the relationship, I made sure to give really clear direction of what my role was. It was so important for them to know. And I said, anything that I bring forward to the team, I'm part of the multidisciplinary team. If I have any concerns or behaviors about your behaviors and I'm bringing it forward to the team, I will work with you first to try to see how you can bring it forward, or I'm going to let you know that I'm bringing it forward. So I was really transparent about what my role was going to be with them, and that I had to write case notes, and that I had to report anything that I seen if I found it concerning. So right away, I think because I set those boundaries and clearly defined what my role was, it actually set the relationship up for success. And so the team helped me to make sure to do that in a really good way, because I had blind spots. As much as the team had blind spots, so did I. I still had some of that criminal addictive thinking, right? Where it's like, well, I don't want to be a rat and I don't want them to not like me. And all of these things, ran through my head still. And so I had to navigate those feelings and work through them and know that this is the way I always say it, if somebody liked me all the time, then I wasn't doing my job right. So I had to learn that it was okay for somebody not to like what I was doing, and that's okay, right? Because I was challenging them to go into discomfort, which can be really difficult for some people. So supporting the team to change their worldviews was another one, because it's so easy to get stuck when we've been working in a justice system for a really long time. We can get jaded, we can get tired, and we begin to lose hope. And so then we start to put people in categories and boxes. And so what I really challenged was supporting the team to think outside that box. Because sometimes when we think somebody is not participating or being a part of something, and they think that, like that's a behavior that needs to be sanctioned or they're worried about, sometimes I had to support them to slow down and just really realize that sometimes this is just survival mode, fight, flight, or freeze or fawn, right? Like they are stuck in this and they are so used to people reacting to them a certain way that they see everything as a challenge. And we're also coming in and we're asking a lot of people to follow a lot of rules when the biggest thing that they were doing for years was surviving, right? How do I get drugs? How do I get high? Who do I harm? Like their focus was very different. Then all of a sudden we're bringing them in and we're asking them to show up for appointments, drug screens, be accountable, challenge their behaviors, all of these different things. And that can be really overwhelming. So sometimes I would really reach out with the team and ask them to kind of shift their view and say, this is what might be happening for them. And so I like the feedback that I got when I brought that forward. We were able to kind of look at things a little differently. I attend weekly meetings with the treatment team. So I do a lot of things virtually, but I meet with a lot of the teams every 2 weeks to do updates, and they update me on things, which is actually a really critical part of the relationship, because like I said, sometimes I don't like to use the word, but sometimes they pit us against each other. I don't like to say triangulation as much as I like to say they're trying to get a different answer from each person on the team. And so sometimes I fell for it And I've been caught in that. And so this is why it's really important that we meet as a team so that we can make sure, the person's not telling me one thing and then telling their case manager something else, or they're actually, because of my lived experience, sometimes they tell me things that they're not telling the team. So my job then is not to think that, you can only rely on me because I have lived experience. What I support them to do is realize and trust that they can trust the team just as much as they can trust me. So I support them to build a relationship with the team and tell them that they can go to the team with these things, which is really new for them, right? Because again, it's about not trusting police officers, case managers, social workers, and people like that to have their best interest at heart. So it's being that bridge to help them come back into the system and helping them trust that system. Documentation is really key. Didn't happen if it wasn't documented, right? So one of the things I learned about documentation is how to document was really important. I couldn't go in there talking about my biases and he said, she said, and just being really careful about what I charted and how I charted. So the team was really good at helping me navigate how to document. And what was important to document was something I had to learn too. Something that I don't think is important might be important. And so that documentation is something that they need because, like I said, I'm not in the same room with them all the time. So I'm making sure to keep my notes up to date. Sharing insight in a person's recovery capital. So one of the things that was happening when I first was part of Drug Treatment Court, like I said, I worked for them for 13 years. I started working for them in 2010. Over time, I really begin to really understand how a person's recovery capital is really individual. But when we were starting out, the way that we had set things up was very systematic, right? That you have to do 5 to 7 meetings a week. They have to be AA, NA, or CA. You have to do this. You have to, like, it was like we were kind of telling them what their recovery capital had to be. Over time, some of the things that I learned is not everybody's recovery capital is going to look the same. And so what I started to use is, for me, well, it goes back up a little bit. When I was coming in, I had a very, very colonial way of looking at recovery because it's what I was taught from society. So I was like, you have to have a big book, you have to have a sponsor, you have to do the steps. If you relapse, you fail. Like there was all of these kind of negative messages that I was receiving from the meetings that I was attending, but also the way that I was doing the step work. And so that was really difficult for me because it was a very punish focused system and I was using what I had known. So what I had learned is that I had to switch my mindset and start to think individualistic, and that sometimes some of those recovery pathways were not going to work for people. And so I started to shift my thinking and started again to educate myself on what else is out there that's going to work for people. Sorry. So SAMHSA's definition of recovery says, working definition of recovery defines it as a process of change through which individuals improve their health and wellness, live self-directed lives, and strive to reach their full potential. While the candidate's pathway to recovery will be their own, answers should acknowledge pathways to recovery beyond just 12-step substance use recovery and acknowledge that recovery is highly personal and occurs via many pathways. So that's what I'm talking about. So what I've learned is I started doing research, and there was actually some really beautiful ways of looking at recovery. And one of the things that I seen a lot of people struggle with was the concept of God and spirituality. So spirituality and religion, they were mixing it up, and they were just like God was religion. So I started to help people explore what spirituality could look like for them. And it didn't have to be one being. It could be going for a walk in the nature, right? It could be meditation. It could be going swimming. It could be spending time with loved ones. Like there was so many different directions of spirituality. And so I started to really open my mind, which helped me connect to others to opening their mind to what recovery could look like for them. And also what's going to keep somebody well is going to depend on them, right? So I really started to change my direction and what I was offering people. So you're hearing me talk about 12 steps. And so, yes, one thing we realized in a lot of the feedback that I had heard over the years, and this is why we kind of looked at the 12 steps with people, is they were saying that, sorry, I'm being distracted. I had to do a presentation while I'm in training, so please forgive me. That, sorry, my mind went for blank. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Anyway, hopefully I'll come back to that. The role of mentorship in DTC. Individuals play many titles and roles in the now I remember, sorry. So sponsorship was something that was a really big part of the program and the 12 steps. The feedback that we were receiving from a lot of the participants is that we were talking to the graduates and they were saying they were lying to us and they didn't really have sponsors and they were just pretending they were doing the steps. So a lot of times when people come into drug treatment court, what we have to remember is nobody's really done recovery before. So when we're telling people right away, as soon as they're getting in, as they're starting the program and you're like, you have to do 5 to 7 meetings a week, they're going into these meetings only because it's a have to, and they're just filling a chair because they don't really truly understand what recovery is. So what I learned is that I had to talk about recovery a lot more and help them figure out what really recovery was and what it was going to look like for them. So individuals play many titles and roles in the recovery world, and being a mentor in the drug treatment court is one of them. Over the years, a few different titles have been used throughout the years in DTC to define the roles and expectations of peers and those with lived experience and how they support the program participants. So I started off as a peer, then I moved into a mentor, and then I moved into a recovery life skills coach. So I found that my name just evolved over time. But really, in the end, we were still trying to do the same thing. Just the title was changing over time. The titles begin to change all the time over time because we begin to see that we were more than just a set of steps to people. That there was so many other parts of their medicine wheel that we were working with as mentors. And so that's why the title continued to change over time. So mentorship in action. Oops, sorry, my apologies. Trying to move. I'm going to take a drink. Sorry. So as I said, beginning to expanding beyond 12-step approach to recovery and what recovery networks look like for individuals, for each individual to participate. So some of the things that I have found over time is sometimes I'm working on a workbook with somebody that has to do with self-esteem. Sometimes I'm working on a book that is directed more towards men or more towards women. Another one that I begin to use was Wellbriety. It's an indigenous set of steps that looks at things so you help you understand intergenerational trauma. So there was many different directions that I started to take. And the other thing that I started to notice too is that some people struggled with writing or they had literacy issues and stuff. So I had to adapt how I did my steps so sometimes or how I worked with them. So I started to step away from the steps more and more as I've gone through this program, because it's the 12-step approach is really difficult for people to navigate and a lot of people don't relate to it. So we started to find different meetings that they could attend that weren't the 12-step approach. So Smart Recovery, sometimes Alberta Health Services was offering some different type of things or a men's recovery meeting, a woman's recovery, like that was a 12-step. So we really started to think of different ways that people could navigate their recovery. Because what I was hearing from graduates that were leaving is that they were never attending another meeting after they left. and that they were only going to the meeting because it was part of what they had to do. And so that feedback became really important to me, and I advocated for change because I didn't want people graduating without having a true grasp of recovery. Otherwise, to me, we were not setting them up for success. So it was important for us to start to be more individual with what recovery looks like for people. I started to take away the punishment and shame model of recovery, and I started to focus on what's strong and not wrong with people. And I really noticed a big shift in people when you take that away and you start to help people to recognize their strengths and you give them more autonomy in their recovery journey, that they were actually becoming more grounded in what recovery was for them. So I've had lots of good feedback. This is something that started to shift when I was doing the provincial work, because going into smaller communities is a different is very different because their resources are more limited. And so they really helped me shape and think of different ways to look at recovery by working alongside people in smaller communities. Incorporating Indigenous ways of knowing into treatment models and approaches, land-based teachings, traditional medicine wheel teachings, Wellbody, etc. As I said, I'm Indigenous, so I started to really appreciate the model of looking at things from a holistic approach, and using the medicine wheel to look at somebody holistically was really helpful for me because I was able to look at their mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual. And I know for me, for many years, I think people were always looking at just one part of me and not all of me. And I noticed that like I wasn't getting all the supports I need. And that's one thing I really love about drug treatment court, is the full wraparound services that we offer. And so that's one approach. Or I made sure that like whatever was culturally going to work for the individual in front of me, also I was able to switch and adapt. So that was really important as I learned how to become really adaptable in my role. Supporting reintegration into the community. This includes family connections and a sense of belonging. You don't feel a part of something for a really long time, and reconnecting into the community can be really difficult to navigate. I know for myself, one of the things when I was probably about 5 years clean, I was really beginning to understand how much I'd harmed the community. And so I started to actually share on that lived experience with participants, and it was help them to really understand how much we were harming the community, not just our families, but the whole community we were living in. And so really supporting them on knowing how to be a part of the community in a good way. And how do you become part of your family again? Whatever that family looks like for you can be really difficult to navigate, because some people aren't ready just to forgive you right away for the harm. So it was learning about what it really meant to be accountable for your actions and behaviors. And so really supporting people on knowing how to rebuild those relationships with families, and help them find a sense of belonging in their community. Um, Creating role models in community to demonstrate possibilities. So by me modeling a behavior, it was supporting them to model a healthy behavior for themselves, that they could demonstrate possibility to others in the community. Drug treatment courts are very noticed in communities, right? So if we're sending people out there in a healthy way and creating good, healthy role models, it's going to have a ripple effect in the community. And so that's one thing that I started to notice, is people were going out there and actually caring how they acted beyond drug court. It was one thing to act a certain way when you went in front of your probation officer and the court and the multidisciplinary team, but it's one thing to continue that behavior outside of drug court. And so that's something I talked a lot about with participants. It's like, how do you continue to model that behavior when you're not in front of us, right? You can't go back to old behaviors. So that was like healthy relationships with women, with with their families, with how they acted towards people when they were in the community. And so there was a lot of like really using that from my lived experience, but helping them also find ways within themselves that they could model that behavior. Allowing and demonstrating that recovery is meaningful and purposeful to everyone, supporting people to connect with the culture that they identify with. Supporting people to come back to their cultural identity is a big one because a lot of that gets lost. Building someone that people can reach, building something that people can reach for. Walking beside people on their journey to support them to build skills, knowledge, and attitude. Yeah, like it's a beautiful thing. I can't even tell you. I don't even consider this a job because it's so beautiful to walk beside somebody and see them grow. Like it just when people start to see their potential just from somebody walking beside them and allowing them to have voice and supporting them to see what's important to them and helping them shift their thinking just by talking about things differently, you really begin to see people grow and their language changes. I always say you can tell when they've started to drink the Kool-Aid of recovery because their behaviors and their actions and their attitudes change, and they become more thankful for drug court and for what they have and for the community around them. I really see that take flight when people start volunteering in the community and giving back to the community, which is a huge part. And as a mentor, the other things that I do is I go and do things with people in the community. So to when I travel to Lethbridge, Medicine Hat, Red Deer, or Grand Prairie, when I travel out there and get to see people in person, we'd always go and do something fun. Chelsea's favorite thing once a year was to make us go hike a mountain. I'm telling you, this year it's not a mountain. Last year I barely survived. So but we did it as a team, and the participants actually were really kind. One even hiked back up the mountain after he got down to come walk with me because I was so far behind. But they become like this, they become like family to you. And that's the beauty of it. I get so emotional when I talk about them because we go and we go bowling and we're laughing and we're eating together. And so we're creating this sense of security and sense of belonging with people that they haven't had for a really long time. And even the team comes out. So, like the case managers and the managers come out on the outing with us so that they kind of normalize that they're human too, right? So what is that giving? Valued-based learning, right? And we're not trying to change the person, but supporting them to find who they are. And also supporting people to challenge their thinking distortions, like looking at the world in a negative way and helping them to really challenge those stinking thinking, right? And look at things in a different way. Supporting participants to know they're more than their story. That was really, really, that's a big one for me because I know how important I supported people to know that their story was their power. And that was really, I find that as a really important part of my role because now they can use their story to share with others and so that maybe they might save someone's life and helping them know how to tell their story in a good way and not keep looking at their story as something bad, but as something that is strong. And the other thing is they become strong self-advocates, right? And really supporting them to advocate for what they believe in. So if they're like, well, I don't feel like I'm being heard. And I'm like, well, let's look at that. Let's write that out. Like, what do you think you can do? What steps can you take to reach your goal? Like really helping them with goal setting. Having healthy boundaries. My healthy boundaries with them was creating them to have healthy boundaries within their family systems. Learning how to say no, because I always say sometimes drug court's like a witness protection program because you have to come in and you have to change everything. You have to change everything about your life, and that can be a really difficult thing. And sometimes it can be really hard to navigate setting healthy boundaries with those people that are unhealthy for you. And so again, really important for me to model pro-social behavior, how I behave in the community, and as a graduate, models behavior for others. Oops, sorry. So alumni, alumni, I don't have a whole lot on alumni. We've tried to start alumni groups a few times. It is a growing thing to support people, but what I notice is we all stay connected. They always come back, even the ones that have struggled and have not graduated and have gone back out and actually gone back to substance use or going back out there. And sometimes people reoccur new charges. We don't treat them any different when they come back through our door. we still offer them the supports that they need. And a lot of times when people come back, they will say how lucky they were to have what they had with drug court. Even the ones that have, I don't see them as not being successful. I see them as they had to still had things to figure out and they weren't able to do it in the time they had with us. So creating alumni creates purpose for us. So we're able to still walk beside those people, even if they weren't successful after completing drug court. I've still seen, like I said, lots of people come back and we support them. We connect through social events. So sometimes the graduates will put out a call and we'll still invite people. I have all their connections and I'll be like, hey, I'm going medicine picking. Would you guys like to come? There's an outing here. Would you like to come? Like, let's all meet up and play baseball. So it's really trying to stay connected with people so they don't feel alone and they can feel they still have some people to reach out to. And this is a really good place to create leaders because that's what I think is really important about drug court is that we're creating leaders. So I love it when I see somebody outgrow me. Like to me, that is the most beautiful thing when I see somebody move in this powerful direction. I've seen people go on to be social workers, how they're managers, they're in all these great positions, going back to school, like they're doing amazing things, becoming mechanics, like they find themselves. And so it's important for them as leaders to now lead the new ones coming through the program. So I really encourage them to share their stories with the new participants and of what worked for them and what didn't work for them. And so that they can support them because the next generation of people coming through are struggling too, right? So now we've created leaders who are starting to give back within the drug treatment courts, which I think is a beautiful thing. And we continue to find ways to do things as a community. We will sometimes go and all gather together once a year. I go out and on New Year's Day and I do a big hot meal for people and pull around a wagon and people come along with me. I phone some graduates and we go out and we give back in certain settings. So there's a lot more I could probably say about mentorship and alumni. I hope that I've given you enough, but what's next? I'm very, very proud of this project. One of the things that I started to notice as being a mentor in working provincially with the drug treatment courts is that there wasn't consistency and there was certain things that were missing. And there was nothing really kind of there to really support the next mentor coming. So I approached the government of Alberta and I asked them, I put a proposal forward and I've been contracted in partnership with McMahon and Lethbridge to create a mentorship curriculum that will be used provincially for the new mentors in the DTC. I'm going to be working really closely with Chelsea in creating this. She has become one thing that I can say is, I know Chelsea, you're here, but she's always telling me to reach for the stars and never give up and showing me how capable I am. So it's because of the great managers that I've worked with across the province that they push me to be the best person that I can be, that I go on and I continue to do the things I've done. I've had some really great experiences in my recovery. In 2017, I'm going to end on a funny story because this one always makes me laugh. So I started educating people on how to treat people when you're arresting them with mental health and substances. And I was going across the province doing this project in 2016. And I was in Edmonton speaking to a bunch of police officers that were in the room and lawyers and judges and stuff. And this police officer came up to me and he says, "Do you know who I am?" And I was like, "No." And he goes, "I'm the arresting officer that did the search warrant on your house. And I never thought there was a hope in hell for you." And I was like, "Oh, hi, nice to see you." And he said, "I am very proud to be standing before you today." He goes, like, "You give me hope." And I actually learned to let go of that anger and that pain that day that I was carrying towards the police, because he said it wasn't easy for me to have to arrest you when you had children. And also found out that his daughter was my son's best friend, but that was a different story. But I actually ended up winning a True Grit Award through the Lieutenant Governor, and I invited him, and he came in his full uniform. So as you can see, things go full circle when you believe in people and you never give up on them. It took me 25 years to get 17 years clean, and I'm so thankful that nobody gave up on me and that there was a program like this. Because if there wasn't, I was looking at a 4-year sentence, and my kids would have went permanently to the government, and I would have lost them, and I would never have had the opportunity to watch my children grow into the beautiful individuals they are today. And because of the support I received from Drug Treatment Court, I'm making intergenerational change within my own family systems. My grandchildren have never seen me have never seen me use, and they never will. And so this doesn't just change the one person you're supporting, it changes a family and it changes a system. So I can say very proudly that I'm very proud to be a part of a graduate and also now a leader within the drug treatment courts. So thank you for taking the time to be here and see my presentation.
Thanks, Pam. I don't see any questions. There was a comment in the chat. I don't know if you saw that, but Deborah says, thank you so much for sharing yourself and your knowledge with us. You're incredibly engaging and inspiring. You give me hope as well. So if anybody has any burning questions, please feel free to ask. We do have just about 13 minutes or so. If not, we can end early, but please ask away if there is anything.
Thanks, Darren.
Oh, can you share any resources for Wellbriety? I can't seem to find any in Calgary.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so you just go to White Bison. If you go to whitebison.org, they'll be able to, if you look on there, they'll be able to, you'll be able to order the material there. And there's also training that people can take to become a facilitator. So I'm also a trained facilitator for Wellbriety. So you can get trained and then you can order books from their website, and they might be able to give you information on where there's some meetings.
Yeah, it is American based, so it's pretty tough to find stuff in Canada, but there is some, and there are different things you can get trained in too, which is pretty cool. There's a comment. I just wanted to say, I very much appreciate your view as a peer support. Thank you for sharing with us today and for all that you do. Oh.
Okay. Well, thank you everybody for taking the time to attend today. Greatly appreciated.
Pam, you have your contact information, right? That you
Oh, did I
shared?
forget to put it on there?
I thought you did, but
I
maybe
did too.
not. We could maybe put it in the chat if people did want to reach out to you. For what it's worth, but there we go. I'll wait just a couple minutes maybe and see if last minute questions slide in there. If not, then we'll, or if numbers just dwindle, then that's our cue to leave.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, thank you guys very much. I will talk to you later, Miss Chelsea. We're good?
I think, yeah, I see numbers dwindling, so I'm assuming there's no other questions. So
okay, perfect.
yeah, maybe I'll just wait, and then when we're the last two standing, we'll
okay
leave too.
It's a really hot room I'm in. Whew.